What went wrong with the 2001 star-studded comedy Town & Country? I explore that in this review. Town & Country was directed by Peter Chelsom and starred Warren Beatty, Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn, and Gary Shandling. According to an article about the movie in a magazine that coincidentally has the same title of the movie, Town & Country, the movie's budget was $90 million and it made just $6.7 million at the box office, making it the third biggest flop at the time in movie history after Cutthroat Island and The 13th Warrior. The reason I'm reviewing this movie is because I believe there's a value for filmmakers like myself to study movies that belly flopped at the box office in order to learn what not to do. For a more detailed explanation, watch my previous video that is linked in the description of this video. Full disclosure, there are going to be multiple spoilers, so don't watch this video. If you ever in your life plan to watch Town & Country. The concept of Town & Country is that you have this cast of characters who are well-to-do New Yorkers who spend part of their time in the city and part of their time at their vacation homes in the country. Honestly, I didn't understand that that was the theme of the movie until days after I watched it. It kind of dawned on me, oh, that's what the title Town & Country refers to. So in the movie, Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton are a married couple who are both successful professionals. Warren Beatty is an architect and Diane Keaton is an interior designer. And they are best friends with another couple played by Goldie Hawn and Gary Shandling. Gary Shandling is an antique stealer and Goldie Hawn's character, quite honestly, I don't know what she does. I think she's supposed to be a wife who doesn't work and she's like a woman of leisure. The plot revolves around Warren Beatty's character being this lying, cheating man who is decent at heart but can't seem to stop himself from running around behind Diane Keaton's back having affairs with various women. So the movie is supposed to be a roman à clef, a commentary on Warren Beatty's real-life reputation as a notorious playboy. So first, I'll go through the things that work about the movie. It was really cool to see Gary Shandling in a movie. He was definitely underrated as a comedic actor and didn't seem to do many movies beyond television. And I can't say enough about how great Goldie Hawn looks in Town & Country, especially considering she was over 50 when she made the movie. She looks really fit and at least 10 to 15 years younger than her actual age. In Town & Country, Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton have two teenage children who are affected by their father's philandering. It was interesting to see a young Josh Hartnett playing the son. In the early 2000s, when this movie was released, Josh Hartnett was an up-and-coming actor, and quite frankly, I haven't really followed his career since then. And I didn't know what he'd been up to in recent years until I looked him up on IMDb. And according to IMDb, Josh Hartnett starred in a TV show called Drunk History from 2015 to 2019, and he's appeared in smaller movies such as Valley of the Gods and Inherit the Viper. Another thing that works about Town & Country is the settings. It does have beautiful aerial shots of New York City and the Hamptons. And the well-designed interiors of these characters' homes is what they call interior porn. And the cinematography is mostly really good. Since this is a character-driven movie and not an action movie, Town & Country could have just had a lot of really static shots, but the movie does have some really interesting camera work. Okay, now for the problems with the movie, and unfortunately the cons do outnumber the pros in my perspective. The concept of Town & Country is of these characters dividing their time between the city and the country. Now that's an interesting concept, but the transition between the city and the country often feels disjointed, like the scenes belong in different movies. The filmmakers definitely could have done a better job segueing between the different settings so that it was a smoother, seamless transition. Even though most of the cinematography is pretty good in Town & Country, there are a couple of issues. There's a nighttime scene where Goldie Hawn and Gary Shandling are driving in a car and it looks really fake. It's obviously filmed on a soundstage, and the filmmakers apparently didn't make any effort to make it look like the actors were actually driving on a real street. A big problem with the movie is that it doesn't really make clear whether Warren Beatty's character has a long history of cheating on his wife, or if he's just going through some kind of midlife crisis. They could have explained that the couple has been married so long that their intimate relations have become routine or non-existent, and Warren Beatty's character starts pursuing other women out of boredom. The movie doesn't really develop Warren Beatty's character enough to clarify this, and that's definitely a problem. Maybe they could have given Warren Beatty's character some kind of inciting incident that caused him to start fooling around with other women, such as like seeing one of his friends die from a heart attack and realizing that life is short and he's been married so long and didn't get a chance to date around when he was younger and just wants some more adventure in his life and goes about it in a misguided kind of way. I think another major problem with the movie is that it's told from a man's perspective, the main character played by Warren Beatty. And it doesn't really give Warren Beatty's character, many redeeming qualities other than him just being kind of a nice guy who just happens to fall into bed with women other than his wife. One of Warren Beatty's mistresses in the movie is a classical musician played by Natasha Kinski. I'm sure Natasha Kinski is a talented actress, but she has definitely been typecast as a sex pot. She's been in at least 2 other movies about adultery that I can think of: Unfaithfully Yours with Dudley Moore and One Night Stand with Wesley Snipes. Another problem with Town and Country is some of the comedy really falls flat. There's a scene where Warren Beatty gets up in the middle of the night to get a midnight snack, and he overhears his teenage children having sex with their girlfriends and boyfriends. This is supposed to be played for laughs, but it actually comes across as kind of creepy. A big problem with this movie is that this type of story that doesn't have a lot of action is basically focused on characters and relationships, and the audience for these type of movies is predominantly female oftentimes. But the movie's female characters are one-dimensional. Diane Keaton is basically playing the same character from The First Wives Club, who is a victim of her husband's misbehavior and is totally clueless about his cheating for much of the movie. And that brings me to another point, which is that one of the infidelities that Warren Beatty's character engages in is with Goldie Hawn, who is supposed to be Diane Keaton's best friend in the movie. It's totally problematic that Goldie Hawn never confesses to Diane Keaton that she had an affair with her husband. And unless I missed something, the movie just leaves this plotline dangling. When Goldie Hawn seduces Warren Beatty, they are on a trip down south to see if Warren Beatty can help Goldie Hawn fix up an old house that she inherited from her family. A good way to tie everything up at the end with this plotline would have been to have Goldie Hawn leave New York, move back down south to her family home, and send Diane Keaton's character a note confessing what happened and telling her that she was wrong and she hopes Diane Keaton can forgive her someday. There should have been some kind of reckoning or a reconciliation rather than just dropping that plot line with no resolution. Another subplot is Warren Beatty and Gary Shandling going off to Sun Valley, Idaho, a ski town where Gary Shandling and Goldie Hawn have a cabin. In this setting, both Andie MacDowell and Jenna Elfman play characters who try to seduce Warren Beatty. There's a really strange scene with Charlton Heston where he plays Andie MacDowell's father, and he warns Warren Beatty not to take advantage of his daughter. But the weird thing is the scene happens in Andie MacDowell's bedroom, and Warren Beatty is in bed with her, and Charlton Heston, after giving this big warning to Warren Beatty, just leaves the room, leaving his daughter in bed with this older man that he had just threatened, which doesn't make any sense. And then Charlton Heston later comes after Warren Beatty with a rifle and starts shooting. And it's just really weird, and it's obvious that it's just a gag to try to play up the fact that Charlton Heston was a big gun advocate and to make fun of that. And I guess it's cool that Charlton Heston had a sense of humor about himself and was a good sport, but his plot line was just really kind of lame. Another thing that was lame in this movie is that Andie MacDowell's mother in the movie, played by Marion Seldes, is this really foul-mouthed character. And it's supposed to be funny that this genteel, rich lady is saying all these vulgar things, but it's really over the top. It's obvious that the filmmakers were attempting outlandish, gross-out humor in the vein of There's Something About Mary, but it should have been more like the movie Arthur, where the characters say wacky, raunchy things, but the raunch is more woven in here and there instead of bashing you over the head with it constantly. A major, major problem with Town and Country is that it promotes stereotypes of people of color. There are no major characters of color in the movie, so it starts off with a diversity problem. And it makes it worse by having the minor characters who are minorities being total stereotypes. For example, Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton's daughter, played by Catherine Town, has an Armenian boyfriend named Omar, played by Mark Casabini, who speaks with a heavy accent. His accent is the butt of several jokes. Omar even struggles to tell Diane Keaton and Warren Beatty welcome home after they come home from a trip, and it's as though Omar is just really simple-minded. And Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton's characters have a Latina maid. I mean, if that's not one of the oldest, most tired tropes and stereotypes, I don't know what is. And the maid has a boyfriend, or I'm not sure if it's the maid's boyfriend or just another household employee, that was kind of muddled, who is also Latino and who speaks broken English and is made out to be a buffoon, and that's really problematic. There's another scene where a bus full of Japanese tourists stop at Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton's country home in the Hamptons, and they break out cameras and start taking photos. I mean, come on. That's one of the worst Asian stereotypes since Long Duck Dong in 16 Candles. There's also a black chauffeur played by veteran character actor Johnny Brown. I mean, really? A black chauffeur in the 21st century? How stereotypical is that? I mean, the movie Arthur got away with it in the early 80s, but come on. Town and Country could have at least balanced out some of these racial stereotypes by having actors of color play professionals in the architectural firm where Warren Beatty works, or Diane Keaton's interior design firm, or even the antique store owned by Gary Shandling. But the movie doesn't make any attempt at real diversity at all. Another problem is that this movie stereotypes the gay character played by Gary Shandling. While the character is not necessarily overtly effeminate, he's into antiques, which is a gay stereotype. And it's interesting that this movie goes out of its way to act like it's so woke, because in the end, everyone unconditionally accepts Gary Shandling being gay when his character finally comes out after having struggled with his sexuality throughout the whole movie. But the gay character is not allowed to have a real love interest. The movie shows Gary Shandling's character having an affair with a man, but it doesn't clarify whether it was an actual relationship or just a one-night stand. And there is a really weird scene where Gary Shandling and Warren Beatty end up in bed together when they're in the cabin in Sun Valley, Idaho. The scene starts out with Gary Shandling sleeping on the couch, and he gets really uncomfortable and goes and gets in bed with Warren Beatty. The filmmakers could have really done something with this scene and shown Gary Shandling being just as uncomfortable lying next to his best friend as he was on the couch, because he's still struggling with his sexuality. But it seemed like the movie was just trying to trick the audience into thinking that when Gary Shandling gets into bed with Warren Beatty that some kind of hanky-panky is going to go on. But it just abruptly fades to the next scene, which is really strange. In the big conclusion at the end of the movie, there's a scene where all of the women that Warren Beatty has been involved with, including his wife and the Goldie Hawn character, end up in the bathroom together at a fancy hotel where Diane Keaton's character is getting a Career Achievement Award for her interior design. Now, the filmmakers could have really done something with this big confrontation. They could have had a really funny misunderstanding between the women, or an actual confrontation. The women not realizing they were talking about the same man, and then realizing this man that they're all referring to as Warren Beatty. Now, there's a little bit of that going on here, but overall the scene really misses the mark. And that's a running theme throughout this movie. There are build-ups to scenarios that could be funny, but it all just sort of fizzles out. I think with Town and Country, the filmmakers were trying to make a sophisticated movie for grown-ups. It definitely has the feel of a Nancy Meyers movie, with affluent middle-aged white people running around being neurotic and all the interior porn with the beautiful homes and everything. Nancy Meyers, of course, wrote a couple of the most famous movies that Goldie Hawn and Diane Keaton have starred in, Private Benjamin and Something's Gotta Give. Maybe Town and Country would have fared better if the filmmakers had brought in Nancy Meyers, or better yet, Carrie Fisher, who also worked as a script doctor, to consult with Buck Henry and Michael Laughlin, who wrote the script. While Laughlin and Henry, especially Buck Henry, have done a lot of good work over the years, Town and Country would have really benefited from a female voice in the storytelling. I've tried to analyze why Town and Country was such a big flop. I was thinking maybe it was because it was released in 2001 when society was starting to change and rich people weren't as celebrated or admired as they were in the 1980s. But I really don't think that's the main reason, because in the early 00s, celebutantes like Paris Hilton were really popular. So I don't think hatred of the rich was why this movie failed. I was also thinking that maybe there was some ageism involved. Maybe the studio, New Line Cinema, decided that a movie with a cast who were all over 50 wouldn't make money and they just didn't put any promotion behind it. Now that may have been part of it, but I really think that the main problem with Town and Country is that its release was delayed for so long. According to the article in Town and Country magazine about the movie, the release of Town and Country was postponed 13 times from 1999 to 2001. Talk about unlucky 13. Anything that is delayed for so long starts to get stale and draws a bad reputation for being troubled, and viewers just sort of lose interest in it. The article about the movie in Town and Country magazine also said that a test screening for this movie in 1999 found that Americans don't find infidelity funny. Apparently Americans are perfectly willing to watch television soap operas or reality shows that have people sleeping around, but I guess infidelity is not acceptable to the mainstream movie-going audience here in the United States. Town and Country definitely feels like it would have been better as a European movie, sort of a farce like French twist. If Town and Country would have been made today, it probably would be released on a streaming platform like Netflix, so the stakes would have been a lot lower and it mostly would not be considered such an infamous flop. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.